All right. Well, I can't wait to jump into today's topic. We're going to be talking about unlocking growth and freedom with Nina. So let me jump in and introduce our guest today. Is Nina Cooke. She coaches entrepreneurs all over the country. She's located in the UK, and so this is Nina Cooke. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how you coach entrepreneurs and tell me what you're most passionate about?
Hi, Paul. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to meet everyone here. I live in England with my family. I love coaching business owners because I'm a business owner and we make things really hard for ourselves. Once I realized that I could scale my business, my first business, my personal shopping business, which I started in 2005, by working on my mindset and increasing my confidence and my belief about what I could achieve and how successful I could be, then the penny dropped. And I thought, well, if this works for me, it must work for other entrepreneurs as well. And a lot of them will be struggling with the stuff that I was struggling with: lack of belief, lack of confidence, fear about putting yourselves out there, fear about charging our worth, not believing in our value, all this stuff, overwhelm, lack of focus. And I thought, hang on a minute, I can do this with other business owners. And that's when I started coaching them around 10 years ago. So my biggest passion is helping my clients to live the life they want rather than settling for second best. And we had a chat about this yesterday, and we'll talk more about it in our call today, but ditching the 1.0 version of themselves and living the life of the 2.0 version. So that is what I'm very passionate about.
I love the fact that you're so passionate about coaching. When it specifically comes to, dealing with entrepreneurs or having your own business, it can be overwhelming, all the stuff that you have to do. And before you know it, as an owner, you become your greatest roadblock and you don't even know it. You think everything else is in the way, or your marketing program or whatever. And then little by little, you have growth. But to have a big time scale of a growth, a lot of the times it takes somebody like you, in as a part of the scenario where you can help people understand that they're in their own way. So I love what you do. And I do have a question I want to jump into. Do you think most entrepreneurs believe it's easier to grow their business just 100% or 1,000%? Like, what would they say is easier and why?
Great question. Business owners who are stuck, are stagnant, even going backwards, they would be able to envisage probably 10% growth, 20% growth. I think they would struggle to stretch to 100% growth, certainly not 1,000% growth. Once they can prove to themselves that they can grow significantly, then it becomes much easier to stretch their vision and start looking at the 10 times growth. But when you're stuck and your perspective is limited and there's self-doubt, lack of confidence, that you don't believe things are working for you, then you're looking at very, very small growth increments. So the more of a growth mindset you have, the more you believe you can grow. It all comes back to your perspective and what you believe is possible, which is why we have to change that possibility of what you believe you can have in life. We have to stretch that and grow that. And then you automatically start taking bigger action, start taking bigger risks, start making bigger decisions. And that leads to growth. So when people talk about, well, results are quite random, I'm not in control of my results, I'm not sure what I'm going to be making next month or next year. Actually, results aren't random. They're actually very predictable, because if you believe you can be very successful, then you're going to have the thoughts and the feelings that support those beliefs. You'll take the action, marketing, sales, networking, all of that, hiring team members, opening another office. You're going to make those decisions that align with those growth beliefs. And therefore, you're going to have a bigger business. If you have limiting beliefs about how big you can be, you can't grow, then your thoughts and feelings will support those small beliefs. And then your actions will support those beliefs and you won't see the growth. So results are actually predictable depending on where your mindset is.
So personally, in all the entrepreneurs and business owners that you've coached over the years, what would you say is easier? Is it easier to double your business or grow it 3, 5, 7, more than 2 times? What is technically easier? Or what would you say to that?
Once you get into the scaling mindset, then growing it multiple times is much easier. So growing it, 1,000%. It's just a number. And once you're into that thinking, that anything is possible for you. I worked with an amazing entrepreneur, Rob. When we started working together, he had an inconsistent income. That was the main thing that he wanted to solve. It was fluctuating, causing him problems in terms of budgeting his outgoings and taking great care of his family. So when we started working together, it turned out that he had self-doubt, he had uncertainties about himself, he had worried about whether he was able to, accumulate and grow the income he needed to support his team and his family. So what we had to do was find all those blocks in his thinking that were keeping him playing small. Once we identified them and dissolved them, he doubled his income the next month. And over the year that we worked together, he went from, I would say, 300,000 up to 1 million.
That's
So
awesome.
he was able to take his growth from a level which was comfortable to something which was really supercharged. He grew his team, lots of holidays with his family and everything else. But once you get to that level, you have to maintain it, because sometimes you can think, this feels too big for me. This feels too uncomfortable for me. It's the upper limits. I've gone beyond my upper limits of what I expect in my life. And then you can shrink right back. So once you create that level of growth, it's maintaining and getting to the next level of growth.
So what do you think are some of the big, traits and strategies that are pivotal in achieving growth from an entrepreneur's mindset? Like, what goes through their mind? And we're going to talk about, and the next question is really going to be like what holds them back. But what are some common traits that push, entrepreneurs forward to get that kind of growth?
They take risks. They're prepared to take risks. They have a strategy. They make much better decisions because they have the productive beliefs which enable them to make those good decisions. And they take risks based on the research, whether it's growing the team, whether it's investing in a certain part of their business, because they're not scared of failure. Failure to them is just a feedback loop. If it doesn't work, they learn from it and then they move on. So taking risks is a huge part of being able to grow. Believing in your value is another big piece. If you believe you have something that can transform other people's lives, then you're going to go out confident and you're going to sell it. If you know your own value, that you deserve to be paid well for what you do because you're giving such great value to your client, that enables you to work with wealthier clients and charge higher fees. So those are some of the things which people need to have in place if they want to really scale their profits.
Let's talk about risks here. Like, I'm a ferocious reader at times, and I read a book in January of this year, and I apologize, I don't remember which one it was because I read 10 books in January, but it talked about this concept of risk taking from an entrepreneur mindset. And a successful entrepreneur will look at risk differently than somebody who's either a follower or just not an entrepreneur. And they'll look at scales of risk. And you said, they'll look at research, they'll understand what they're going after. And what the question I have here is, what is a successful CPA going through in their mind when they're like, this is an unsurmountable amount of risk to take versus I don't see any risk. And the outsider's like, they're both hugely risky, right? But the entrepreneur is like, this is a no-brainer risk. And this one is like, this would be a stupid decision to make this or to take this much risk. What goes through their mind and how do they decide there's low risk in this scenario? I feel really good about taking it versus the other one. We're like, no. What goes through their mind?
They would look at the upsides and the downsides of the situation. So what is the upside for them to be able to succeed? Where would it take them to? What would it enable them to do? And then what would be the downsides of, of not being able to execute it? It comes down to their fear of failure. A lot of the time, it's down to the fear of failure. Can they can they live with themselves if they fail? What does it say about them? How do they perceive that? How do they perceive success? So sometimes if there's an opportunity, a CPA may decide that the level of success they would have if it succeeded is too great for them to handle. So people talk about fear of failure, but there's also a fear of success. Now, for fear of failure is easy for us to understand. If we fail, then we're going to beat ourselves up. It'll reinforce those beliefs that we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we haven't got what it takes. So people are very scared of taking risks because they think, I can't deal with the failure side of it. But some people can't deal with the success side of taking a risk either. If it takes off and they suddenly are catapulted to a new level of profit, they suddenly have to be responsible for more people in their office. They take on more clients and all the responsibility that comes with that. They don't believe they're the person who could handle all of that without failing at that level. So they will just close that opportunity down. So when they're assessing what type of risk to take, again, it comes down to who they're being in the moment when they're assessing that opportunity. Are they being the 1.0 version of them that is full of doubt and worry about the costs if it goes wrong, you're focusing on the downsides, or on the 2.0 version of them that believes they can have everything they want, everything is possible for them, and they can deal very easily with failure. Failure is not going to set them back. And they're more attached to the success side of the equation because they know that they are able to get to that level and work at that level.
It's interesting, talk about the 1.0 and 2.0 versions of yourself. And we had that conversation, yesterday. And, for you out there, the 1.0 is where you were or where you are, with the hope of where you want to be. And the 2.0 version is already there. The 2.0 version of you is basically the more successful. And once you hit the 2.0, that's not it. Like, you haven't arrived. It's, then you're going to go to the 3.0 and 4.0. So it's wherever you are today versus where you want to be tomorrow. And I agree with everything that you just said in answering that question. I will add my 2 cents to that. Just in when I moved here to Charlotte, I wasn't necessarily thinking my 1.0 or 2.0 version. I wasn't thinking about success or failure. All I was thinking about is, this is what I have to do. Like, I didn't even see risk. And now that I'm whatever version of myself today than I was back then, I think one of the greatest things that people can do is look backwards to see how much they've grown, to look backwards to see how much growth that they've had in life and business, personally, professionally. And I look back at the decision my wife and I made to move to Charlotte, and I'm like, what were we thinking? Like, I don't know if it ever crossed my mind that failure was an option. I don't know if it crossed my mind that we were going to come here and have, crazy success. I just believed it was what we were supposed to do. And, I'm not trying to throw a monkey in the wrench or whatever that saying goes. But the reality sometimes I almost want to say this is going to come out wrong, like blind luck. Like, it's just an ultimate confidence in what you're supposed to do because of who you are. And, when my wife and I moved here, we had a specific amount of money in the bank. We started building a house in Charlotte. I had no business, and who does that? Like, I look back at that decision that we did, and I'm like, you're nuts. Like, what? That was an insurmountable amount of risk that we took. And I never even saw the risk ever. It was like, this is what I felt the Lord was calling us to do. And it was a blind faith that it was going to work out. And it did. So the only point I'm making here, and I totally agree with everything that you said, it's very logical. And you can come to those conclusions I think after, like when you're your 2.0 or 3.0 or whatever version of yourself, you can look back and go, whoa, like what was I thinking? And then you can probably connect the dots to emotional, logical decisions and, chasing. For me, I used to use the example of I had my blinders on. Like I wasn't able to see the risk that I was taking because of the belief in what I was supposed to do, the passion that I had in my heart, the understanding of success that was ahead. It wasn't about failure or success, it was about purpose. And, then at one point I felt like the blinders came off and then I'm able to have that epiphany like, you idiot. Like, what if it went wrong? Like, what were you thinking? Like, was there any other way that we could have got here? Like to take that level of risk. Looking back, I think I was crazy to take it and I did it, but I never thought failure was an option. I didn't ever look at we were going to be crazy successful, but I never thought we'd fail. And it was just nuts. So this is a fun conversation because we're both entrepreneurs. We're talking about decisions entrepreneurs make, and we can connect that back to decisions that we've made, almost like what I am right now, like stupidity almost, but it worked out. And I don't even know if my wife understands the amount of risk, because nothing ever changed, right?
Brilliant. I love what you're saying. Imagine you hadn't had that conviction that there was no failure. Imagine you didn't have that purpose and that connection with your higher self, with God, because you didn't feel you were doing it on your own. You felt you were supported in a bigger way and you
Mhm.
just went for it. Imagine you didn't have that mindset. Imagine your mindset being, oh, what if this doesn't work? This is a big risk. I'm uprooting my family. I've got a decent income here. What am I doing? It's too big a risk. And you talked yourself out of it. So you have that mindset that allows you to go for things and to grow and to be very successful. But not everyone has that mindset. So for the people who are listening in who don't have that conviction, it is a conviction that you will succeed no matter what. You called it blind faith. And faith is believing something that we haven't seen in the physical world yet. So if you don't have that conviction and that self-belief that it's going to work no matter what, that failure isn't an option, then how do you get yourself in that place where you can start taking risks, which are going to help you, not just in your professional growth, but in your personal growth? That is the key that I work with my clients to unlock, because they all have talent, they all have expertise, they've all got, energy, etc. But they don't have the confidence to believe they are that person who can reach the higher levels of success. Some of them are already successful. They have a nice lifestyle, but there's a stubborn part of them that knows that it's not enough, that there is more that they can achieve. And so what we need to do is rewire their thinking, look at those blocks and see, it's like these little demons, pulling at our coattails, pulling us back and saying, no, you can't have that. It's too dangerous. Be safe, be comfortable. So it's swatting those demons away so you can move forward and have a bigger vision of what is possible for you. And once you have a certain level of success and get to the next level, then your vision expands even more. And you think, well, if I could have that, then I can have that as well. Oh, I managed to create this level of wonderful lifestyle. That means I can also have that. So it perpetuates your confidence and your belief and your faith. This is just a lovely accumulation of it coming along. It gets bigger and bigger. But you've got to start that process.
So I want to come back to mindset here in a minute. And I love what you said, and I want to respond to it, but I want to jump into some roadblocks, some hurdles of what holds entrepreneurs and successful people back. So give me the three things that you see most common that hold people back from reaching the next version of themselves, the next version of success in their business, or the next career jump, in corporate America. What are the most common things that hold people back from the next level of success?
I'd say there are three buckets of beliefs. The first one, and I believe the most important one to resolve, is self-esteem beliefs. Now, when people say, "Oh, I can't talk to that type of person. There's no way I could have a client who, who had that much to invest, or I'll never be as good as so and so, etc." It's because fundamentally, if you kept saying to them, "But why don't you believe you can earn that much? Why don't you believe you can be that successful? Why don't you believe that you could, have, that much AUM?" If you keep asking them why, it'll come down to three self-esteem beliefs, which are I'm not good enough, I'm not deserving, and I'm not worthy. So on some level, they believe they do not deserve to have what they want in their lives. Now, once you can dissolve these three limiting beliefs, then your mindset automatically shifts into thinking, oh, I do deserve that. Oh, I can have that. I am enough. I'm good enough. And that automatically enables you to start taking action, aligned action. It's not forced action. It's just like, I want to go out there and talk to these sort of people. I want to, create this amazing system that will help other people. I want to take great care of my family because I can believe I can do it. So it just switches something on inside of you. So those are the self-esteem beliefs which have to be dealt with. Then the other two buckets which sort of feed off that are money blocks. So if you said to someone, "What is the most you believe you can earn? What's your monthly revenue?" They'll say, "Oh, maybe I can get to 200,000. What about 500,000 a month? Oh no, that feels too big." So a lot of us have these glass ceilings on top of our revenue, and we think we can get that far, but we can't have any more. So I was talking to a client, and I said, "What would you like your yearly revenue to be?" He said, "Around 2 million. I said, "Why 2 million? Why wouldn't you say 4 million or 5 million?" He went, "Oh, I can't stretch to that. 2 million is a stretch for me, but I can't stretch to 4, 5 million." So, but if you think about it, numbers are neutral, but
Yeah.
we impose a meaning. 2 million is bit of a stretch, but okay, 5 million, completely out of my league. I can't do that. So we have these income blocks, money blocks. I'm never going to have enough that I'm going to have lots of extra money to do things that I want. Am I just going to have enough to get by on? Or I'm not the sort of person who is a multi-millionaire. My parents didn't have much money, therefore I'm going to be the same as them. So there's lots of stuff around money and hidden away, childhood beliefs. We believe what our parents think about money without even realizing we've taken on their limiting money story and we live our life by it. That's always a shock when we find that to be true.
Mhm.
My parents were very frugal. They came from India. They came and lived in England in 1960. They had no money. They had to build everything up from scratch. They were very frugal. They counted every penny. And we used to have very cheap, they buy cheap things for the home. And we had lovely, delicious food every day, but everything was, the pennies were counted. Now, me and my brother and sister, we have a complete different attitude to money. We're very abundant around money. And my husband said, "I don't understand how you and your brother and sister are like this about money when your parents are completely different." So we, at some point, subconsciously rejected their money beliefs on some level. But a lot of people, they accept their parents' money beliefs and they carry them through life, and then they find that they have limits. The third bucket of beliefs are success beliefs. Now, I said that people fear failure, but some people fear success. Because imagine if you suddenly became very successful, then there can be downsides in people's thinking. They may think, well, if I become very successful, maybe my family won't like it. Maybe they'll think I've become big headed and they can't relate to me anymore. Maybe there'll be jealousy from friends and family. Maybe I'll lose relationships as a result of becoming very successful and I won't be able to hang out with those people anymore. Maybe they won't accept me. Or maybe if I get to that level of success, it will take a lot of work and I don't want to work longer hours than I already do. Or they may think, well, if I become that successful, then I have to sustain that level of success. What if I lose it and come back down to what I've got now? I'd feel like a failure. So we have all this unconscious programming going on. And the interesting thing is, If you talk to people, they say, no, I don't have any blocks around success. Of course, I want to be successful. What are you talking about? So this isn't necessarily conscious thinking. We're not going around thinking, oh, I can't be too successful. What if my family get cross with me? What if they get jealous of me? We don't go around thinking that. But this is the stuff that is the programming that is running our decision making. So when a great opportunity comes along, why do people sabotage that opportunity? It's because all this program is saying, don't go near that. It's really dangerous. There'll be consequences if you do that. It's too big for you. You don't deserve that. And this is how we sabotage our lives. It's not just around business, it's around relationships, it's around health, it's around so many different things.
So if there's these three blocks, self-esteem, money blocks, and success beliefs that hold us back, and I'm the type of person that wants to understand what's in blocking my way, what's holding me back, but I really want to focus on what gets me forward. And that's where I want to jump back into this mindset for success. What we had talked to before, and you saying, I look back at some of the decisions I made in my life and career, and there's certain times where I didn't see risk, and then looking back, I was like, what, whatever. But you're like, you had a mindset. So I want to dig into this mindset. I know you're most passionate about this. So help me understand, what is the mindset for success, first of all, and then how do you get it? Is it learned? Is it an ability? Is it a feeling? Like, what is it?
Everyone has the potential to be very successful. I used to think that only certain people can be successful in life because they have something special about them. They have a certain way of doing business, but it's not true. Anyone can be successful. And if you look at people who are very successful, they all come from different childhoods, different environments, they have different talents, they're different industries, different countries, a whole host of different things are going on there. So what do they have in common? They have a belief that they can have what they want. They can be as successful as they want to be, just as you had that faith that this would work out. Now, maybe you didn't expect it to work as well as it did in the first year, but you had a belief and there was no holding you back, was there? You had a passion, you had a motivation. So that is what takes us to great success. Now, how do you get that thinking around, I'm going to make it no matter what, even if I have failures along the way, my sight is on that goal and nothing is going to move that. I'm just going to make sure I get to it. They have to see it on some level. They have to be able to visualize it in their mind so they are in tune with that goal. They're thinking about it, they are seeing it, they are living it in their mind. Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger, may love him or loathe him, I've just watched a Netflix documentary. It was amazing. So the first part is how he became a bodybuilder. He said, he lived in a small Austrian village. His parents' expectations is that he would have the same life as them. He would grow up, get married, have kids, have a local job. He had a different vision for himself. He visualized success on a grand scale. He happened to see a bodybuilding magazine in a window in a shop. He bought the magazine, he stuck the posters up on the wall, and he said, that's what I'm going to do. And what he did is, so there was a bodybuilder who'd won, I don't know, Mr. Universe. So he imagined his face on that bodybuilder's head. So people were cheering Arnold. He had won. He was the champion, and he visualized it daily. And that gave him the inspiration to take the action to get to that goal. So if you're not thinking about, first of all, we have to know what the goal is. What do you want in life? Most people are very fuzzy about this. If you say, what do you want? Well, I'd like to be successful. I like to have enough money. I'd like to maybe, live in this place, have some more holidays. Get really clear on what you want in life. What is that 2.0 version of you? What is the lifestyle that they are living? And I would encourage everyone who's listening to this to look at every area of their life and think, how do I want that life to be? What do I want to be doing, having, being? I have a vision board. I have a vision board. It's just sitting there and I look at it and it covers all the areas of my life. And I say, this is the life that I am living. I look at it and I don't just think, well, this is the life one day that I may have. I look at it and I think, this is the life I'm living. I step into it. I embody it every single day. And there are already 3 things on my vision board which are in the process of unfolding. And I have complete faith that I have everything on there. So it's not just thinking to your goals if your goals are out there in the future somewhere. It's thinking, I am that 2.0 version that has all these goals. Everything is possible for me. I'm not that 1.0 that has doubts and worries and anxieties. I am living this life. Now, I know this is challenging because if it was easy, then we'd all be doing it. We'd all be multimillionaires having the best time of our lives. And we're not. So I understand that this is challenging, but it's making that decision to shift into that state of already having it. And now, whether you like visualizing, whether you like scripting, whether you like saying affirmations, get clear goals and keep them in your head and put your focus on them. If you don't focus on them, they're not going to materialize because your subconscious mind has nothing to work on. If you're not feeding it the lifestyle that you want to live, so they can get to work on it and build all those bridges to get you there, if you just keep it giving it muck, rubbish thoughts of, I can't have that, that's too hard, it's a struggle, I tried before and I failed, therefore I fail again. If we're just feeding our subconscious those thoughts and say, oh yeah, more failure, here you go, you can have it, more disappointment, go on, have a bit more lack and scarcity, oh, I'll give more of that to you. So I suppose we come down then to the mental diet. What is the mental diet that you are thinking? We talk about our health diet, we talk about food diet, we talk about exercise and everything else. Those are all very important. Obviously, what we feed ourselves is really important. But I believe the most important diet that we should pay attention to and that we don't, we just let that go by default, is our mental diet. So I believe the most successful people are driven because they have their goal, their desires very firmly inside their thinking. They almost embody them. And they believe the more you embody and think about your goals, the more familiar they become to you, the more normal they seem to you, the more natural they feel to you. And therefore, you're doing everything to ensure that they unfold in the 3D world.
That's so funny. Hearing you say that, it's hard to not think back over your life. You said, I've got my vision board sitting there, and when I think back before we moved here, my wife and I sat down. I'm very much a goal setter. I set goals every year. I mean, everybody in this office can vouch for it, how I do. I actually set goals. They don't know this, but I set goals twice a year. I set a goal in January, end of December, beginning of January, and I've got some other people in here doing the same thing. And I've got 7 categories, and I set goals based on these 7 things. And then in the summer, we always take a beach trip somewhere. And every day on that beach trip, my wife and I typically walk the beach. And we'll go for a mile or two just about every day, sometimes twice a day. And on those walks, we set goals as a couple. And so I have, my personal goals for my life, my career, my faith, my business, whatever, and my health, my diet, all these different categories. And then in the summer, my wife and I will talk through those goals. She's a part of them in January, but she is not a goal setter. We'll talk through them. She really just not as passionate about it as I am. And in the summer, we talk more about the family. And then I review where we're at 6 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months in. And we kind of talk through them, progression. And then I figure out, I never go backwards, but I'm like, should I make the goal a little bit further down the road because we've achieved so much already? And so I totally agree that a big part of your mindset is having that clear direction, clear motivation, of what you want to accomplish. And when I moved to Charlotte, I think I told you the story, when I resigned in Michigan from the business I was a part of, and we moved here, I had one huge motivating factor. And when I left my office, I handed my resignation, I took my father-in-law, we drove to a store, and I bought a watch. And nobody knew I was going to do this. And when the watch comes out of the case in the men's department, my father-in-law caught the little logo, and it was a Hugo Boss watch, and it said "Boss" real big. And he goes, I get it. Symbolizes you're the boss. And I was like, no. I was like, close. I was like, I'm the boss of my time. My motivating factor when I resigned and to start my own business was I wanted to control the most valuable thing that I have in life, which is my time. It wasn't that I could make, whatever amount of money or grow this firm or have control or charge more or have value or educate or, even change an industry, which I feel like I want to do now. My original motivating factor, and is a huge, motivation still to this day, is I don't want anybody to dictate to me where I have to be, when, and why. I want to be able to control my time. And that's always been a thing. And my wife will remind me, as we're trying to grow this company and do different things, she's like, remember our number one priority. I don't want you growing this business so big that you can't take time off, that you miss a kid's game, or that you can't go to whatever event. That's why we did this. You stay true to that. And she's awesome from that regard. She might not be the goal setter, but she will hold me accountable to whatever goals I set. And so I've always personally been very clear in what you're talking about. Setting those goals, having it, my subconscious, you even mentioned that, having your subconscious work on something. Like when we're awake, we're always thinking through something, but our mind is always working, even when we're not thinking about it. And I was telling the story the other day, 2 days ago, to one of the staff. She was in my office, and I have dyslexia, and there's a lot of benefits to having dyslexia, but one of the drawbacks of having dyslexia is my spelling, names, dates, and sometimes typing. And what's incredible, and she saw me do this, sometimes I will type a word completely backwards. Type a word. When it's really sensitive and a bad day, I'll write an entire sentence backwards. And I was writing an email, and this was a while ago, and I wrote the phrase, "How are you doing today?" And you know how sometimes when you write something, the computer takes a little bit of time to catch up, and then when you're done, it puts all the red line underneath it. Well, I'm writing this long, this email to a client, and all of a sudden this long, like under the entire sentence. And I'm like, what? And I didn't even see it at first, but I wrote, "How are you doing today?" completely backwards, starting with Y, A, D, O, T. The whole, like the first, like today, the last word and the last letter was first, and I mean, and my brain, I just stopped. And at first I didn't understand what it said. And then I looked at it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wrote that entire sentence backwards. And I wrote this in seconds. Like it was like, and I went down, I was like halfway through my next sentence, which I wrote the right way. And then the line came up, and I was like, what? And I was like, what did I just, and then I recognized what it was. And I was like, how incredible is the mind? I love how you said the subconscious, because I'm a huge believer in getting in your mind what you want to do, how you want to accomplish, visualizing, wherever you feel comfortable. Like we're all designed differently. You have, very A type and B, C, whatever type of personality, and some are comfortable in front of people, some aren't. However you want to visualize things is so personal. For me, I can be like Arnold Schwarzenegger, not necessarily physique wise, obviously, but the reality of me visualizing myself where I want to be, I can be super particular. I can visualize where I want a company to be, what I want to build, what I want to create, how I want to serve, or the experience I want for my clients. I mean, I can see it. And one of my favorite lines, and I'll shut up here. One of my favorite lines about Walt Disney. He created Walt Disneyland or Disneyland in California, and then he died before the opening of Walt Disney World in Florida. And on opening day, I think it was 1966, or I don't know exactly the date, when Walt Disney World was first opened. The story is they allowed his wife and her best friend. She was the first person on the opening day. She walked down Main Street, USA, which is the most magical place in Disney World. I actually got married in Disney World, not there, but she's walking down arm in arm with her best friend, who her husband had just died, I think, a year or two before, Walt Disney. And her friend says to her, I wish that Walt was here to see this. And her response just sends chills up my spine. She goes, he did see it. And if he didn't, you wouldn't be here. And it's so incredible because he had the vision. He knew exactly what it was going to be like before it was built, before it was finished. He knew every little detail. And he used to live in an apartment on Main Street, USA, because he didn't want to leave this magical place. And, it proves the point of what you're making, that you have to, if you want to have the mindset for success, you have to see it. And then your mind will always be working towards it, even when you're not, right?
And that's it's a chill down my spine when you said that. But the step before you see it is you have to believe that you are that person who can have it. So if I said to a business owner, okay, imagine, you have £10 million, dollars coming in every year. There's coming in every year. You're not doing much work. You've got a great team taking care of it. Your business is growing while you're away. You're enjoying time with your family. You're having wonderful holidays, hobbies, etc. That business owner, if they don't have that belief, would not be able to see. They say, well, I feel like a fraud thinking that, because I can't even think about having that. I could think about being a bit more successful, but that's just way too big for me. That's why some people just do little incremental jumps in their business. I can grow by 10% or 15%, maybe that'll be my goal. But that takes a long time. If you can do bigger jumps in your mind first and believe that you can make that jump, then everything goes much more quickly. You grow more quickly, and it's exciting, and your personal growth really scales. And it's all about the personal growth. The personal growth has to come first before the professional growth. It's what you see and what you don't see. And the belief is seeing is believing. Actually, I think it's the opposite way around. It should be believing is seeing. First, like Walt Disney, you have to believe it, think it, imagine it, embody it. Walt Disney walked down that street many times in his mind, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
So you have to do it in your imagination first and keep feeding your imagination. And you can have some doubt around it. So it's okay. So when I say, for anyone who's listening, they want to try this out. So if you're imagining that you have a 10 times bigger business, let's say, and you think, oh, well, I can start thinking about it, but then my mind says, but you haven't got it yet. So why are you thinking about it? It's not true. Or how are you going to get that? And it's going to be really difficult. And all these things have to be in place before you can have a 10 times bigger business. So the way to do this is to just start somewhere. So just think, okay, maybe you want to write it down. What would I like? Or cut out some pictures and put them on a vision board. What would I like? Well, 10 times bigger business. That would be really, really nice. And then just say to yourself, I'm going to step into the 2.0 version of me who has a 10 times bigger business. Then the conscious mind will start throwing up doubts. Oh, but you haven't got that. And that'll be so much more responsibility. And it's going to be really hard for you to do that. And how's that going to happen? So the thing is not to suppress all the negativity that comes up, is to say, okay, I accept I've got some doubts about being able to do this or have this. I've got some fears about this. but that's not going to stop me from having it. See, it's like folding in your doubts and anxiety, etc., about having it, but just keep returning to that vision. Just keep returning to it, making the decision, okay, which version of me is having all these doubts and fears is the 1.0 version? Okay, I'm going to decide to step back into the 2.0 version. Now, if you believe in God, if you believe in your higher self, whatever you want to call that, bring that in as a support, because it can feel very tough doing this, with our five senses, where we feel quite limited. So I'm not religious, but I believe that there's a higher part of me that's taking great care of me, that has everything. So I tap into that. And when I stand in my 2.0 version of self, I'm standing there knowing that I've got this higher, infinite part of me that's taking great care of me. It's taking care of everything. And my only job is to decide what I want, imagine I have it, and allow the unfolding of that to happen in the 3D world, and expect it will unfold in the 3D world. And I will take inspired action. So what I try and do is, when I'm doing my work or I'm with my family, I play a little game in my head. I say, I'm going to have this conversation as a 2.0 version of me. I'm going to do this work activity as a 2.0 version of me. And because I want to get very comfortable being in that 2.0 version of me, who has all my desires, where everything unfolds perfectly, I want to spend more time in that state. So I'll just keep reminding myself, I can do it 100 times a day. Oh, I'm stepping back, I'm returning to 2.0 version of me. I don't want to hang around the 1.0 version with all these worries and challenges and, all this negative thinking. I don't want to be there. I want to be here. It's a lot more fun being here. So it's training your mind. But the first part in training your mind is awareness. You become aware of when you have negative thinking going on and think, which version of me is having this negative thought? Oh, it's a 1.0 version. I'm going to return to 2.0. Just doing it, and repetition. It's not very sexy. It's not, it's not, I can't say, well, this is the most fun thing you ever do. It's just solid repetition. Just keep returning to self, keep returning to 2.0 self. And then after a while, it will start to kick in and you'll see something happen in your 3D. You think, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've got a little bit of evidence. And that's it.
That's awesome. And that it starts that spiral of success, I feel like. Well, Nina, this has been awesome. I'm so glad that we've met. We got introduced by a buddy of mine, Kevin. And it's been awesome getting to know you. This has been an awesome show today. Leave our listeners with something. Give them one more nugget, that maybe we didn't touch on, or a reminder of something. Give them something they can take away and apply like immediately.
Okay. I will give them two if that's okay.
Sure.
One is to sit down and think about what that 2.0 version of you has. What are all your desires? What is the life they are living? Because if you're not clear on that, then it's going to be very hard for you to step into that version of you. So write it down, use pictures, talk into a recorder, whatever works for you, but get really, really clear on that and think big. Don't hold back. And the second thing is become very aware of your thinking and what you're saying to yourself. And whenever you know you're saying something negative, or we can be very brutal to ourselves, very unkind, when you're saying those, when you become aware, just say, okay, which version of me is saying that? The 1.0 version. I'm going to return to my 2.0 version and hang out here. Just keep doing it. Keep repeating awareness, returning, awareness, returning.
That's awesome. So if somebody's an entrepreneur watching the show, or just got really inspired by you and really, really wants to engage, hire you, learn more about you, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, it's very easy. You can send me an email, and my email is nina@ninaCooke.co.uk. So you can get hold of me there. And I have a book I've written for financial advisors. It's all about their mindset. And if I may, I can send you a link. It's called Renegade Mindset. It's a financial advisor's guide to a peak performance mindset. It's all about overcoming limiting beliefs, living your best life. We look at all the challenges that financial advisors face. And so I wrote it with helping them to overcome these blocks. So I can give you the link for that if you would like to offer that.
Yeah, and then, but your coaching isn't specifically just to financial advisors, it's to any type of entrepreneur, correct?
Correct. Every type of business owner.
That's awesome. Well, this has been great. Thank you. I'm excited about what you do and collaborating in the future. And thanks for such a great show today.
Thank you, Paul.